I am back. Welcome, YouTube family. This is your boy, Kevin Strong, and welcome to the Kevin Strong Show. About a month ago, I did a video and I titled it My Last Video. Decided over the last couple of weeks that I kind of wanted to jump back on YouTube and talk about some things that's been going on in this country. Obviously, the title of this video basically deals with, do you deserve to be poor? And talk about poverty a little bit. So before we get into that, welcome to my show. I see that I didn't lose any subscribers, even though I didn't have a lot to begin with. But hey, you got to get in where you fit in, brother. So I do appreciate you guys hanging with me. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into this. So Jack Ma, who is the founder of Alibaba, which is the Chinese version of Amazon, basically says that if you are at the age of 35 years old and you're still in poverty, it's basically your fault. Now, do I accept that statement as an absolute universal fact? No, but I think there's a lot of truth in it, because I think people are creatures of habit. We don't learn from our mistakes. We make poor decisions when it comes to our circle of friends, our significant others, you name it. Everyone's heard the old saying, show me your friends, I'll show you your future. And that's why eagles don't fly with pigeons. So without further ado, we're going to jump into a graph. I'm going to show you how consumer debt, mortgage balances, and non-mortgage debt has just been skyrocketing since the great financial crisis. I'm going to read a little story about this lady who talked about how she's been trying so hard to turn her life around, and she's having such a hard time doing so. And this is her affirmation statement as to say, hey, I'm not lazy, and I'm going to tell you it's still her fault. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into this graph. Let's see. You can tell it's been a while. All right. So this is called household debt on a credit report. So this particular graph has two categories: non-housing debt and housing debt. So what I want to bring to your attention is that this graph goes back to like 2004 to 2022. So I don't even have last year's information yet. We all know that consumer debt on all fronts has gone up to all record highs. So this is much worse than this particular graph is illustrating now. My point is that, as you can see here, going up into 2008, when we hit the top, just before we went into the great financial crisis, at that point in time in history, debt was at a really high level. Non-housing debt was at 2.65 trillion in the second quarter of 2008. I'm just reading from that little box there. And then housing debt was almost 10 trillion. So once the great financial crisis happened, the financial system almost imploded. The federal government stepped in and intervened and started doing quantitative easing, brought down interest rates. Housing did not basically rebound in aggregate to around 2012. That's a different story. But the point I wanted to make is that as you see this thing cascading down after 2008 all the way to 2010 and bottoming in around 2013, there's a 5-year period where non-housing debt and housing debt went down because of, obviously, people were paying down their debt. People were filing bankruptcy a lot and discharging that debt, basically restarting the debt cycle, so to speak. But around 2013 is when the housing market in aggregate started to pick back up. And in concert with that movement, people started to accumulate more non-housing debt and housing debt. And as you can see, as this graph goes up here, it goes up, and up. What I'm saying here, folks, is people don't learn from their mistakes. Keep in mind, this is 2021. We had bottomed out in 2013. So this is 8 years after the bottom. People have accumulated more debt now than they did back in 2008. And as you can see here, this particular one goes up all the way up to the fourth quarter of 2023, where we have non-housing debt at almost 5 trillion and household debt at $13 trillion. So even though we've come through a period where basically money was cheap and the interest rates didn't really start to go up until like within the last couple of years, no one took a proactive approach to making sure that their debt stayed down and they were accumulating wealth. We started accumulating more and more debt. And now we're getting to a point where it's so insurmountable that a lot of people cannot get out of debt. And they're looking at it as though something's wrong with the system. But I respectfully push back to those narratives and say, wait a minute. You had ample time to address this. You just didn't. So let me go ahead and read this story that I got from this lady. She says, every situation is different. I am poor financially. I apply everywhere. I search job boards every day for a company willing to hire me. Unfortunately, I was convicted of murder for the death of my abusive boyfriend almost 25 years ago. Keep that in mind. And this, quote, great country, unquote, good old USA won't allow me to pay my dues. I spent 22 years in prison. I rehabilitated myself, learned graphic design and database design, but I can't get a job at a dollar store because of my criminal background. So no, poor people are not all lazy. What this lady is saying is partially true. I'm a big fan of saying, and this is going to probably piss a lot of people off. Everybody's saying everything's so unaffordable. No question. Inflation's out of control. But here's my analogy. A lot of times, ladies and gentlemen, your problem starts at 6 o'clock in the morning. You screw off, you get lazy, you don't do anything, and then you wait till 11:58 p.m. 2 minutes. And some of you guys know what 2 minutes means even when the door is closed. It's not a lot of time. But anyway, 2 minutes before midnight, you want to complain and have somebody come in and erase all the problems that you created through procrastination that started at 6 a.m. in the morning. So to this particular story, she said she was in an abusive relationship. I'm not here to say whether or not that's true, but my point is, why did you choose that individual? Once you got involved with him and see that he had aggressive tendencies, what made you stay in that toxic situation to the point where you felt that you had to take his life in order to save yours? Because apparently the system said that it wasn't justified. Whether or not that's true, I don't know. But the point that I'm making is that being proactive and not getting yourself into bad situations before it's too late, that's the medicine. Prevention is always the best source of medicine. Maybe this person particularly picked the wrong individual. So what we have here, going back to that graph, is that you have people who there were massive amounts of people who filed bankruptcy during the great financial crisis of 2008. A lot of times people who file bankruptcy, statistically speaking, they rack up debt again because they have a poor mindset. You just cannot make this up. So a lot of things that are going on now are squeezing people to the point where you can no longer live paycheck to paycheck. Maybe that's something that was allowed to happen for the last 10 or 15 years, but I think you can no longer do that. Those people who have a certain amount of income and that are living significantly below their means probably are in a better position to combat and fight inflation. Everybody's hearing these stories about car prices, car insurance going up, homeowners insurance going up, food prices are going up. So everyone from a consumer debt perspective is getting squeezed. So if you don't have a lot of extra disposable income, then you're that person that's complaining that something that happened at 6 o'clock in the morning and now it's 11:58. For some people, it's too late. Just like this individual here. I'm not saying that this person didn't rehabilitate herself, but guess what? Sometimes when you make a mistake, there's a price to pay. And sometimes when you break something, even though you repair it, it never comes back to its original shape. Sometimes choices that you make, decisions that you make in your 20s and 30s stay with you for your entire life. Everybody can't get a do-over. That's just a sad, sad, sad situation. So do I think Jack Ma, the founder of Alibaba, said if you're 35 years old and you're still in poverty, it's your fault? I think there's a lot of truth to that, but I think in aggregate, you got to look at the details because it's very difficult to believe that somebody has been living paycheck to paycheck for 25, 30 years and not taking any accountability for it. Now they're at a point in their life where they're saying, the system doesn't allow me to afford a house. The system doesn't allow me to do this and that. And maybe your lack of being proactive and procrastinating for decades is the reason why you don't have options in 2024 when you had those options in 2013. So please feel free to comment, agree or disagree. I am back. I'm not going to say that I'm going to commit to a weekly video, but I will try to do so. This is something that I've been thinking about for a long time. I think it's somewhat controversial because a lot of people don't feel that way. I've got a really good friend. We go back and forth, and some people just don't get it. Don't hate me, D. Some people just don't get it. It's just, it doesn't take 20 years to lose weight. Okay, folks, let's just call it like it is. You're just not motivated to do it, and that's okay, but don't lie to yourself. It doesn't take 30 years, 20 years. It doesn't take 2 or 3 decades to get out of debt if you're serious and committed to it. So you just can't keep chugging along expecting the system to take care of you when you don't take care of yourself. This was the Kevin Strong Show. If you have not subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Once again, thanks for hanging around and staying with the channel, and I will see you in my next video.